Die Zeit ist nicht barmherzig. Wir werden geboren und schon rinnt unser Leben dahin. Wir erschaffen eine neue Welt. Ohne Zeit. Ohne Gott.
We're going to devote our energies to sports and gardening, all the cultural pursuits as far as they're concerned. In fact, we're going to put the goons to sleep. Meanwhile, we dig.
Greetings and welcome to The Anadromist, Burn Power, with you again on a rather overcast, gloomy day. Not truly gloomy. I've been through a lot gloomier days in other places. Here in Tbilisi, Georgia. Look that up on a map if you don't know where I'm talking about. It's a perfect day to talk about the subject today, which is, I've done my series on time, but this is an addendum. We'll call it the first addendum to my series, because I'm sure there will be others. And today we're going to discuss the rather interesting German television series called Dark. That's all it's called. It's on Netflix. And before I go too far, I just want to say I highly recommend this film if you are a person looking for anything other than the feel-good movie of the week, month, year, decade. Check out Dark. It's an intelligent film. It deals with the nature of, well, we'll discuss that, time, among other things. So, we started off this video, unless the high sheriffs have made me get rid of it, with a clip from the one of the trailers for the film, where it states, "We are creating a new world without time, without God."
Gestern, heute Morgen folgen nicht aufeinander. Sie sind in einem ewigen Kreis miteinander verbunden.
So what is this TV series Dark about? Well, it starts off as a murder mystery and then becomes something radically different. It becomes about time travel. And I suspect, since we're only halfway through it, the first 2 seasons are done, and we have not gotten to seasons 3 and 4 yet, it's going to change a little bit further. I suspect there's something about other dimensions coming up here, but we will see. There are murdered children found in this small German town. And eventually this leads to a rather convoluted plot, which I'm not even going to begin to get into, but an interweaving of characters involving time travel that ends up going back and forth to different periods of time. And this, rather than simply being a time travel movie, it starts actually examining concepts of time. And there's a clip coming up here that I want to show you where 2 characters, I won't explain their relationship to each other, it is rather interesting, are having a conversation. The younger one is named Jonas, and the older one is named Adam. Let's watch the clip.
In der Zukunft gibt es eine Prophezeiung von einer neuen Welt, dass Sigmundus die Menschen ins Paradies führen wird. Ist das hier? Eine Religion?
Wir sind das genaue Gegenteil davon. Wir haben der Zeit den Krieg erklärt. Gott den Krieg erklärt. Wir erschaffen eine neue Welt. Ohne Zeit. Ohne Gott.
Was heißt das?
Das soll heißen, dass das, was die Menschen seit Jahrtausenden anbeten, den Gott, der alles zusammenhält, dass dieser Gott nichts anderes ist als die Zeit selbst. Kein denkendes, handelndes Geschöpf. Eine physikalische Gesetzmäßigkeit, mit der sich ebenso wenig verhandeln lässt wie mit dem eigenen Schicksal. Gott ist Zeit. Und die Zeit ist nicht barmherzig. Wir werden geboren und schon rinnt unser Leben dahin wie die Körner in dieser Sanduhr. Der Tod immer unausweichlich vor uns. Unser Schicksal nichts als eine Verkettung von Ursache und Wirkung. Im Licht und im Schatten.
So, if you've been watching my series on time, you may have found some interesting resonances in that clip. The older, scarred man, Adam, is very obviously anti-religious. He's not starting a cult, he says, but what he is doing, in the name of his group is Sic Mundus, which means my world. He is creating a new world. And he is declaring war on religion, particularly the religion that involves God. And he says things like, God is time, and we are going to destroy God and destroy time. Essentially, he's saying we, this new radical group, are against time. That's really fascinating. Now, what does he mean? I think he means that God, well, in a way, what I've been saying is that God can only be found in time. That is to say, you cannot find God in space, which is pretty precisely what the ancient Hebrew view of God was, which is to say, God was not located in any objects. God was not located in any space on earth for the ancient Jews. So, God instead, when Moses says, well, who should I say is sending me? God simply says a phrase which translates into, I am who I am. It's essentially that God, I wouldn't say God is being, as much as that would be a very limited way of describing what was just happening in that phrase, but rather that, or even that God is consciousness, or any of these kind of trite phrases that we use to try to put God into a box. But the point is that God is God himself. And it's not an itself. There's a reason we use the masculine pronoun and not it. Because God isn't an it. We're not talking about a blind, nameless force here. We are talking about someone who has a name. Not as someone located on a throne in space somewhere, but someone who has characteristics, personhood. Not a personhood like I have personhood. I would be a pale reflection of God's personhood. God would have to be not only greater than my personhood, I really hope so, not only a reflection of everyone's personhood, but greater than all possible personhoods put together. And that would include, well, you could think about other dimensions, you could think about angels, you could think about whatever you want to put in that category. So Adam has started a group, a movement, we don't know exactly what, that is against time, against God. And this is the radical new worldview that he sees. Now, what I find fascinating is that is the radical worldview we live in. That is to say that we're living in a world where everyone is self-defined, where everyone is what they choose to be. I mean, it's not true. You cannot get away from your biology, the country you were born, the language you speak, your DNA, your chronological point in history. Nevertheless, the radical movements that have started, we could go back to the French Revolution, maybe to the writers like Saint-Simon, or Diderot in the French Encyclopedia was radically against the notion of God and radically egalitarian and against the notion that there was anything special to this human thing we find ourselves to be. So that there was essentially, if you look up in his French encyclopedia, he says basically there is no real difference between man, animal, plant, thing. And it is this view, this radical egalitarian view, that then goes into communism and goes into, it has come out in a different form in our gendered, racialized, social justice movements. It is this view that sees this radical egalitarianism that is against also the notion that anything in time has importance. That is to say, we want to live in this world where we aren't affected by time. You will be young forever. You will travel as fast as you want. You can, everyone wants to live in this science fiction universe as if living that universe would somehow be a utopia and not the dystopia that it undoubtedly would be. So we already live against time. And in doing so, we do live against God. Now, I think that Adam in this is wrong. God is not time. Time is merely a creation of God, created by the movement of things anywhere. Otherwise, everything would just be a photograph. It would be static, still, three-dimensional, purely, without the fourth dimension of time. But, having said that, the TV series has hit on a radical truth, the connection between God and time. Now, if you want to get into what I really think about this, well, that's the point of my whole time series. Go back and start that. But time is what we in this 21st century tend to live against. We tend to live against the effects of time. We want everything now. We want to stay young forever. We want to be a photograph. There's a great line from Boomtown Rats song called She's So Modern. And talks about this girl named Charlie. And she says basically she wants to be a photograph. She wants to be a model. She wants to be a photograph. Well, that's like, so many people now with their selfies. It's like, what's more real, the person or the photograph? Well, again, check my time series for that, and also my the lecture that I gave on conceptual humanity. But it's interesting that this television series now, is the television series saying that we should be against time? Well, one thing is for certain, we're not sure if Adam is at all heroic or not. Probably not. But then again, the people that he is against aren't necessarily painted as the best people either. And the film thus far, or rather the series thus far, I keep saying the film, the series thus far has not painted us a heroic picture of the people fighting Sigmundus, this nefarious, shadowy group. So, we are left to wonder. But for my part, I know that there are people in this world who are both against God and against time. And essentially, to live against time is to deny the possibility of a God. And I would say that once one recovers a sense of living in time, believing in God becomes a whole lot easier. But the more you live in this world of just matter and energy without any conscious conscience to it, then yeah, you can say, oh, it's so normal to believe in nothing. Well, because that's what a static universe would be. But it isn't a static universe. It has motion, and because it has motion, it has time. And if time is real as a part of this universe, then my feeling is, well, of course, there's a God. There is a purpose. But I'm not making that case here. Well, anyway, this has been just a rather short, for me, take on this television series. I highly, highly recommend watching it. It's on Netflix. I did a sample for a month just so I could watch it. But do what you can to see it if you're at all interested in these ideas. And remember, you can like this thing, which helps somebody. You can subscribe this thing, which makes me feel good. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so through PayPal, links below. And if you do support, you get extra mysterious content sent to you through email. So support me through PayPal. I could use it, but you know what? I'm grateful that you just found this and you're watching it. And if you're curious about more of these ideas, watch other videos on my channel. Well, this is Byrne, the Anadromist, reminding you that anadromous is a word that means going against the stream. It is what salmon do when they swim back up the river to spawn at the end of their lives. So, live the anadromous life. Go against the stream.
A people without history is not redeemed from time. For history is a pattern of timeless moments.